Okay, so if you have been around for more than the past, I guess, year and a half or so, you will know that I used to do weekly wrap ups. They were very timely, actually. I would film and edit them and then post them every Monday. And then I switched to just every 5 books I'd wrap up, and then I got way fucking behind. And now I have time on Sundays again. So, my new plan here is I will be filming weekly wrap ups, every Sunday. However, there's no guarantee that they're going to be, posted, edited, and posted in a timely manner. In fact, they're not going to. I'm just going to say it right now, they're not going to. But in order to get to that, we've got to wrap up the several books of the past several months. So we're doing that today. It's going to be very fast. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be very fast wrap up, of these books. It's going to be a long video, but I'm not going to spend too long on any of these books. So we're just going to go. So first up, we've got It's So Easy and Other Lies by Duff McKagan. This is a musician memoir. It follows Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses. I did film a full review of this one, so I'm actually not going to say anything else because I did film a full review, so that is all we need to know. It is Duff McKagan's memoir. Then I read something on my Kindle. That is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. This is a story about an autistic woman who decides that she's going to hire an escort to teach her how to date. It was alright, it was cute. I'm not a huge romance fan, so I don't think I got as much out of it as other people did, but it was definitely an interesting one, and I did enjoy the characters, so pretty well written. Then I read The Scar Boys by Vlahos. This is it's a near historical book. It's about a kid who got struck by lightning, and he starts a band, and then they go on tour. They're called the Scar Boys because he's got a big scar on his face because he was struck by lightning when he was a kid. It was not as good as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to like it a lot more than I did, but it was okay. It was a little disappointing. I like that it took place in the 80s, so that was cool. It's also a sort of frame narrative, so that's kind of cool, but I was a little bit disappointed. I thought I was going to like it more than I ended up liking it. Then I read V.C. Andrews' April Shadows. This is about a girl whose father ends up acting really weird suddenly, and then also her older sister's a lesbian. A lot happens in this book, but I filmed a full review of it, so I'm going to stop talking. Then I read a Warrior Cat book that is some novellas, that is Tales from the Clans. This has Tiger Claw's Fury, Leaf Pool's Wish, and Dove Wing's Silence. This I am filming full vlogs of these Warrior Cat books. So this is a series that I enjoyed a lot as a kid, so that will be up at some point. If it is not already, I think it might already be up, honestly. But I'm enjoying these novella collections. I think that I liked Leaf Pools the most out of this one, though it was interesting to see how Tiger Claw started as such a little jackass and he just kept going. So then I read So What, the official Metallica illustrated chronicle edited by Stefan Chirazi. This is a pile of parts of their Metallica magazine, So What, and so it's got a lot of stuff. It's mostly 90s Metallica that we're talking about here. Lots of pictures, lots of questions. It's a fun time, just a Metallica coffee table book pretty much. Then I read a children's book that is otherwise known as Sheila the Great by Judy Blume. This is about this girl who pretends like she is super tough and knows everything, but she's actually terrified of everything. Pretty meh. It's just kind of your average children's book, I guess. Your average Judy Blume book, so it's a good one, but not much to say about it. Then I read another novella set for warriors. That is Path of Warrior. This has Red Tail's Debt, which was I think my favorite, Tawny Pelt's Clan, and Shadowstar's Life. I will say I am still really wanting more of this early clan stuff. I do really, really enjoy it. I think it's really cool to see the warrior code get formed. So that was cool. That was fun. I enjoyed it. Then I read Damien Echols' new book, that is Angels and Archangels, A Magician's Guide. I don't really believe in any of the magician stuff that he's talking about, but I do think it's really, I really like his writing. I think he's just a fantastic writer, and it's really interesting to read, and it's just kind of fun. But I read it. It was fun. His writing's still fantastic. If you're interested, I would check out Life After Death more, though I probably, unless you're into the magician stuff. Then I read a Warrior Cat Super Edition as Graystripe's Vow by Erin Hunter. I did like this one a lot. There's a lot of flashbacks to the Old Forest that I really enjoyed. By the way, I don't think I ever actually, I know I mentioned the vlog, but I didn't mention what these books are about. This is it's about a bunch of feral cats who live in the woods, have a really sick-ass naming system, and I read them when I was a kid, especially the older series, and this one flashes back to the time around that older series, so I enjoyed that quite a bit. Graystripe was pretty much just echoing everything I'm thinking about these clients now, so that was really fun. That was really fun to read. Then I read a Clive Barker book. That is Books of Blood, volumes 1 to 3. This is short stories. Honestly, I'm thinking that Clive Barker, my love for Clive Barker, I have granted read The Great and Secret Show, and I love that one. But the other full-length Clive Barker books, are they behind me? Oh, they are. That I've read. The two that I didn't love, actually. The other ones they're to be shelved. I just don't have enough shelf space yet. They were okay, and I love his writing, but I think his short stories are really what take me, and man, this was just fantastic. They were just so like, Clive Barker is a fantastic horror author. He is just an amazing, incredible writer. I love his writing style, and he is just, oh God, his gore is fantastic. Like, this is the man who, created like Hellraiser and Candyman, but it's just, it's fantastic, and I love it a lot. I'm very excited. I've got In the Flesh, another short story collection. So I've got that one to read. I think it's in one of my stacks of books to read soon, maybe. I'm not sure, but I have it somewhere. Then I read No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is a thriller about a girl who gets stuck at a rest stop in a snowstorm, and then she sees a little girl in the back of somebody's van, like chained up, or like a dog kennel. I really enjoyed it. I will say, what really horrified me as somebody who lives in North Dakota is all of that very well described snow driving horror. Will say, yeah, but it was really fun. I know, I don't know. I think I'm not a very predicty person. I don't really predict things, so I was shocked at every twist. I really liked it. I think I do need to read more thrillers because I just really, really enjoy them. And this one was really fast paced, really fun. I got it book of the month. I think this was it was 2018, so this was an add-on, but I'm very glad that I picked it up because I really enjoyed it. Then I reread The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier. This is one of the first young adult novels. It is one of my favorites. I had to read it first for school in 8th grade. And I love it. I think it says a lot about conformity and being your own person and not just bowing to the man kind of thing, like very Pink Floyd kind of stuff. I enjoy it. I love it a lot. It is one of my favorite books of all time. Then I read I Have a Bad Feeling About This by Jeff Strand, which is a kind of horror comedy situation about this kid who goes to this wilderness survival camp to make him tougher, but then like a lot of weird shit starts happening, and it was really, really fun. It was hilarious. Honestly, it was that kind of sarcastic, weird kind of humor that I did enjoy it. It reminded me a lot of one of the books that I wrote, The Horror at Camp New Woods, where it's kind of a horror comedy situation. This was a lot funnier than mine, though, I will say. I liked it. It was a fun time. I'm glad I read it. It didn't take too long. Then I read The Children by, who was this by? Charles Robertson. This is a old-ass horror novel, little paperback, about these children that show up and start like killing people, and it's a whole mystery, like who these are, what's going on. The tagline is, "The new generation of evil, you'll meet them on the day you die." So that's really fun. It was okay. It was fun. I read most of it at my first ever parent-teacher conferences as an English teacher, because both, I think, due to the fact that I'm a high school teacher and they don't have to come, plus COVID made it so that not very many people came. So I got to finish this book. It was pretty good. It was a fun time. I liked it. I liked the little twists, sufficiently cheesy. Fun times. Then I reread an old childhood favorite, and that is Whisper of Death by Christopher Pike. This is when I was like in 2nd grade, I was homeschooled, and my mom would go to my grandmother's house and teach preschool there to like kids like my little brother's age, because my brother was about 4 years old. And so I sneak off to the basement, and I found a couple of Christopher Pike books. And so this was one of the ones that I read over and over again. I still really enjoy it. I think it's really fun. It's really kind of twisted and dark, and it's got a really interesting storytelling aspect to it. Probably, should a 7-year-old have been reading this? No, but it's still fun as a 23-year-old. I'm getting to the point now where I kind of forget how old I am. Like, I know I'm turning 24 this year, so in my head I'm already 24, but I'm not. I've got until July. So this is, by the way, January 31st. So there's that. But then I read actually my dad's favorite book, and that is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Pirsig. Oh boy, was this a little bit of a slog. He just kind of kept going on and on and on. There were parts that I enjoyed. I did really like the idea of how to solve writer's block, where you just kind of keep going smaller and smaller and smaller, but oh boy. Oh boy. I read it though. I did read it, and as soon as I told my dad he was reading it, he went and he fucking sent me the sequel, so that's in the book wall now, and I gotta read that at some point too. Then I read an arc, but it came out in 2019, so it is already out, of Rebel Girls by Elizabeth Keenan. This is a near historical. I believe it takes place in the early 90s. It's 1992, and it is about a girl who goes to like a Catholic high school, and a rumor starts that her younger sister had an abortion, and this is like a really horrifying thing to these Catholic kids, and it's just about them. A really kind of abortion rights book, and it was really interesting. It was really good. I did enjoy it, but I do want to kind of unhaul it so I can pass it on to like some of the girls in the school that I teach at. I'm thinking of like one or two in particular that I think would really enjoy it. And it's just I mean, it might be a little bit basic in terms of the whole feminism thing, but it's a really fun time, and I think probably a good thing for a young adult novel. Then I've got another Warrior Cat novella collection. This is Legends of the Clans, which has Spotted Leaf's Heart, yes, the grooming one. Pine Star's Choice and Thunderstar's Echo. I will say, I think I enjoyed pretty much all these. I mean, first of all, you had two Old Forest ones, and then you had a Beginning of the Clans one, so I was kind of predisposed to like it. This is the one that has the pedophile cat in it, though, so be warned, Spotted Leaf's Heart, it is like legitimate grooming that we're seeing here, so be a little bit warned. So, I did read it, though. Then I read a novella. This is another arc, but again, it came out in 2019. Goodreads keeps sending me arcs, even though I take literally like years to read them. But this came out in January of 2019, so it's out. But it is mcglue by Otessa moshfegh. This was actually one of my favorite books of the year, honestly. It is a very short little novella. I believe it's about 100 pages long. Oh, 140, so it's a little bit longer. But it is about this guy who he wakes up and he's just perennially drunk. But people are telling him that he killed his best friend, and it kind of flashes back between stuff that happened between him and his friend and him now, and it's just very, very voicey, very character heavy. I really, really loved it. Honestly, it was so well done. I need to read more from her. I honestly, I know this is my first Otessa moshfegh. I've had my eye out for her books ever since I heard of Eileen. I never read that one, though. I need to get more of her books, because if they are anything like this one, they are going to be amazing. Then I read an old Western novel, that is The Lone Gunhawk by Frank Gruber. I think I read this over Thanksgiving. We were at my boyfriend's parents' house, and I think I read this one there. But this is about like this like gunhawk who like comes into the town, and then there's like a lot of like the big corrupt big farm. I don't really remember anything. It was fun, I guess. I don't know. I've got a lot of westerns in the book wall because my parents got them for me as a joke. Now I have to read them, but I did read this one. It was okay. Then I reread Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is in this very cool old paperback hardcover that I got actually from a library book sale when I was still in college. You got this beautiful, beautiful beginning here. And I mean, Frankenstein's obviously a classic and amazing, and it's just, I am amazed at these really young writers, and it's just, man, I really enjoy it. I think it's a really fun book. It's really, honestly, a very accessible classic if you're looking to get into classics. It's not my first time reading Frankenstein, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Then, oh boy, the very worst book of 2020 was Mercy by Jodi picoult. So I read this on my Kindle. Like I said, I've got a Kindle now. I don't read on it very much. I should read on it more, but I did read this one on my Kindle. It took me so long because I hated it. Oh my god. So this is about this so it starts out, it's got a really cool concept. So it's about this guy. It's kind of talking about like euthanasia, because it's about this guy who kills his wife who was suffering from cancer because she asked him to. And then it kind of, if it had just followed that and followed the trial, I would have probably really loved it. But they had to add a stupid infidelity plot with the with the sheriff and his wife, and then the sheriff going after this random new girl because he just can't stay away. It's fucking out. I think 25% in, I made a pact with myself. Like, if this motherfucker does not die by the end of the book, I'm giving it 1 star. And guess what? He didn't die, so I gave it 1 star. It was so bad, man, honestly. Oh. Anyway, then I read Looks by Madeline George. This is a young adult eating disorder book, but it is about this girl who is very, very fat, who ends up meeting this girl who's very, very thin. And this girl has like anorexia, and she's writing, they kind of band together after another girl steals her poetry. Pretty typical young adult eating disorder fiction, I guess. Not much to it. It was fun, I guess. Then I read one of my own books. I've got a couple of these in here. Like I said, like I've published, 8 books this past year, and I just, when they call, like I write these because I like to read them, so I read them. I read Columbiner, which is my school shooting novella. It's very short. It's like 100 pages, honestly. 105 pages. It is about a kid who moves to a new town and falls in with a Columbiner, or somebody who really kind of idolized the Columbine shooters, and it's about how somebody can fall into something like that. It's fun. I mean, I think reading your own work, you really fall into like seeing like, oh, yep, that's where I could have done that better, that's where I could have done that better, but it's a fun time. I enjoy it. Then I read a Guns N' Roses book. Guns N' Roses, the most dangerous band in the world by mcglue. This came out in like 1992 or so, but it's basically just following the rise of Guns N' Roses. This guy, he is one that Axl Rose does name drop in a I forget what song it is, but it's the and Getting in the Ring. But I mean, he's got a lot of interviews with like Slash and Duff, so that's pretty cool. I did read it. Then I read I'm a Therapist and My Patient is Going to Be the Next School Shooter by Dr. Harper, which is a pseudonym. These originated on Our No Sleep on Reddit, and the author kind of put them into three little books that you can self-publish on Amazon. Very nice cover, I will say. I do enjoy it. It's a fun time. I mean, it's a very fast read. It's a very fun time. I found that I do really like the kind of creepypasta little horror stories. I did buy a couple other ones by the lady who wrote Baraska. She published 3 little collections. I did buy all those. I just like them. I've been really trying to buy and read more self-published work ever since starting to self-publish my own, because I mean, I don't know. I just feel more connected to it now. I did enjoy this one. I think it's a fun time. Obviously, don't read this if you're looking for an accurate portrayal of therapy, but it's fun. Then I read Night by Elie Wiesel to teach it to the 9th graders. This is a Holocaust story that I have not read since 9th grade myself. Depressing. Yeah. Very, very interestingly written. Yeah, I read it. Then I read another one of my favorite books of the year, which was Becoming Superman by J. Michael Straczynski. This is a memoir of Mr. Straczynski, who was like a Hollywood writer, and I really enjoyed it. I really, really liked what he had to say about writing. I really liked what he had to say about like literally nothing else matters except for writing, because all I want to do is share these stories and consume these stories, and I could really, really relate and connect to how he felt about writing and everything like that. I really like it. It's very well written. Like, it's long, but it doesn't feel that long. He went through a lot of shit in his young life. He's not young anymore, but when he was young, he went through a lot of shit. It was a good one. I would recommend. This is another arc, but again, it came out in 2019, so it is out by now. It's on Thrift Books. Then I read For Darkness Shows the Stars by Diana Peterfreund, which is a young adult retelling of, I believe, Sense and Sensibility, which I have not read. No, Persuasion. The only Jane Austen book I've read Emma, and I've read Pride and Prejudice, and those are the only Jane Austen books I've read. But it was okay. It was pretty good. For some reason, I kept thinking that it took place in space. Oh, I know why. It's because of this, but it doesn't take place in space. I just keep thinking it does because the cover has stars on it. It was pretty good, honestly. I don't read a lot of books like this anymore. I think I liked it more than I would have liked it when I was a teenager, to be honest. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was enjoyable. I think some of the kids at the school are going to get something out of it. Because when on Hall Books, that's what I do. I take them to the school. I have this stack that's just free books. Just take whatever you want. Just don't bring them back. So So then I read another one of my own books, and this is my book that I think has the best cover. That is Serial Killers with Cookies by me, obviously, Aurora Dimitri. This is a little thriller here. It's not very long. It's about 240 pages. No, just 200 pages. It is about a girl whose parents and younger brother are killed by poisonous cookies, which she doesn't eat because she's gluten intolerant. And then she ends up moving in with her grandparents in this small town, North Dakota, where if you have read Scare It, you'll recognize the name because I just use the same town over and over again, like I'm Stephen King or something. And when she moves in there, but then a boy that she goes on one date with gets kidnapped and they have to go chase down the killers. I love this series, honestly. Like, I'm working on rewriting the second book right now. I just love the main characters descending into descendants, I don't know, into vigilante justice. She loves it. She loves vigilante justice so much. I enjoy this series. I enjoy the characters. Justine, the main character, is probably my favorite, but I can't wait till we get to book 3. We meet Alex, who's my other favorite. It's a fun time. I read it. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. I don't remember. I always give my books 4 or 5 stars. Obviously, it's going to be at least a 4-star because I like it. I wrote it. I wouldn't write it if I didn't like it, but I wouldn't publish it if I didn't like it. But then I rarely think they're perfect. Then I read another book to teach that's Anthem by Ayn Rand. That's to the 10th graders. This is a very kind of famous dystopian novel and is written in first person plural. It is where everybody says we because there's no individuality. Ayn Rand was an actual nut job, but I do like what she has to say about individuality. And Anthem is, I think, a really good book about individuality. Honestly, I do think it is. And obviously, there are things that don't gel quite right with her ideas. Ayn Rand is obviously the great love of libertarians everywhere. But I mean, I grew up in a pretty libertarian-esque family, but I really like what she has to say about individuality because I do think that individuality is important, you know. But anyway, then I read another young adult novel that is The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heilig, which I did really like. This is a book about a girl who drives the ship that can go through time and go to different places in time, and it's really fun. Oh god, I loved this one guy who was in here. What was his name? I believe it started with a K because they always start with a K. Kashmir. Oh, I loved him. He was so fun. He was so cool. I really liked this. I think I do have the sequel on my thrift books wish list because that is pretty much the only place that I really buy books anymore, apart from my book of the month and those random lots of books from eBay. And if I do ever go to like the bookstore or the thrift store or something like that, which is rare, but I really liked this. Honestly, I think it's a really well done. This book got really hyped, but nobody read the sequel, and so nobody really talks about this one anymore. But it's a really fun book, honestly. It's really fun. It's really funly written. I enjoyed it a lot. I think this is another one too that I really liked, but it's a young adult one that I think the young adults, the teenagers that I teach, are going to get more out of than I will. Then I read another book on my Kindle that is Winter by Audrey Gray. Oh, this one was pretty bad. It is a very, very, paranormally young adulty. It's in that kind of fairy kind of category that was popular for a while after Sarah J. Maas started fucking everything up. It's about this girl who lives in this dystopian world where fairies have kind of taken over stuff, and she ends up getting taken to be a fairy protector, and it's not very good. It was okay, I guess. I think it was free on Kindle, and that's why I read it. It's a whole series. I doubt I'll read the rest of it. Maybe at some point. Then I read another book of the month pick, and this is one that was very, very controversial, and is also another one of my favorite books of last year. It's All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. This was another add-on because this was the book of the year for 2016. But this is that pedophile book that everybody was pretty distressed by in 2016. This is the one because this is about this little girl who lives in a crack house, and it's a very abusive situation. It's very awful for her. One day she meets this big motorcycle guy, and she's 7, he's in his 20s, and they're the only good things in each other's life, and then they start having a relationship, and it is disturbing as hell. People have compared it to Lolita. I wouldn't because honestly, I wouldn't compare it to Lolita. Obviously, they're both very nicely written, I guess. But like the author, this is a fantastic author. But it's just, it's a lot, and it's a great book. I will say, it's just disturbing, and it's especially like it's a really good book, but I understand when people are upset by it. You know, it's good though. Then I read another book to teach it that was Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, another one for the freshmen. This is a classic American novel about two guys who just trying to make it in the Great Depression. Lenny and George, Tell Me About the Rabbits. I will say this is the one book that my freshmen have been at least vaguely interested in because it's about farming, small town North Dakota. But it's a great, Steinbeck is one of America's finest writers that they ever had, so it's obviously good. Then I read this picture book called Why Does the Cat Do That? By Susan Bonners, which is about cats. Rescued it from the library when I worked there. Then I read a book about the French Revolution, which really reignited my love for the French Revolution. That is Vive la Révolution by Mark Steele, which is a kind of humorous look at the French Revolution. I will say, what I judge French Revolution books by is normally how they treat Camille Desmoulins, who was a propagandist and my favorite revolutionary figure / propagandist ever. But if a French Revolution book delegates him to simply a footnote or just he stood on a table once, I'd get mad at it. This one didn't. So, yeah, they even got a little picture of him in the front here. Let me find it. Let me find Mr. Camille. Mr. Desmoulins, not Mr. Camille, but... Oh, come on. Camille. Where is he? I don't have that much. There we go. I put little hearts by him because he's my favorite. So, then I read Killer Cults by Stephen Singular. This is just a very light look across a bunch of different cults, most of which I knew about, some of which I didn't. I didn't know that much about NXIVM, for example. I do know that it's a cult, but I didn't know that much about it. It talks a little bit about those really, really extremist Mormons. Obviously, you got stuff like Manson and Jonestown, but... And at the end, which was really interesting, is they talked about the cult of Columbine, which was talking more about mass shooters. That was fun. It was a fun time. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was fun. I liked it. Then I read Fly Girl by Sherry L. Smith. This is actually a reread. I read this when I was in, I believe, middle school, but this is about a girl who, a young mixed race girl who passes for white, who passes as a white woman to join the women, the WASPs, the Women Air Force Service pilots, as a female pilot. And it's interesting. It is very, very interesting, very detailed, especially for a young adult book. It's a good one, I would say. It's Speak in print, so it is pretty good, pretty hard hitting. Talks a lot about some interesting things. Then I read The Devouring by Simon Holt, which was actually a lot better than I thought it would be. This is a young adult horror novel about these creatures that come and take your soul. It's actually pretty dark, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. It was a fun time. I ended up buying the second and third books after I finished this one. I really liked Her Best Friend because this is from the 2009-esque era where the best friends were always kind of quirky and fun. I did apparently do a little bit of annotation where we're talking about when you make something real in your head and then it has power, and I wrote Tulpa on the side, so that's fun. I did enjoy this one. I bought the second and the third book, so I'll read those at some point. They're in the book wall. Then I read Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven, which is a young adult novel about a boy with, I forget what it's called, where you don't recognize faces, and a girl who's 400 pounds. People were upset about this because the girl once had to be airlifted out of her house when it came out, so people were upset about that. It's okay. Jennifer Niven is not a super great author, but I read both of her books. Has she come out with more? I mean, I've read All the Bright Places, and now I've read this one. She is decent. Okay, she is an acceptable young adult contemporary author. Then I read another one of my favorite books of the year, which is Tatum Brown by Mick Foley. Yes, the former WWE wrestler. This is a book. It's I believe near historical. I think it takes place in the 70s or the 80s, about this kid who was in trouble for a bit. because he killed a teenager who was trying to rape him, and then his dad is real fucked up, and it's just kind of a little bit of his life and how he's dealing with his dad, and it's just really well written, really fun. It's one of those books that just kind of sucked me in. I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. Then I read another one of my favorite books of the year, which was Leverage by Joshua C. Cohen. This is a book about a male gymnast and kind of hazing and bullying and sexual assault on males, and I loved his captain. What was the captain's name? I don't remember. I think it was like... Oh, God. I believe it was... It was like Bryson or something like that. But he was... I loved him. I loved him so much. He was so much fun. Like, oh, God, what was his name? Danny. Yeah, that's the main character there. Let me find... Bruce. It was Bruce. Bruce is fantastic. But it was really good. It was a really good time. Pretty thick, but it didn't feel that thick. Then I reread A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. I love A Clockwork Orange. I'm actually teaching this now to my juniors and seniors, which is really fun. I have to read it out loud because we have to talk about it because it's very difficult to understand. But at this point, I've read this book like 5 or 6 times. I just love it, man. It is one of my favorite books of all time. Kind of long. It's a old, like, dystopian-ish novel about delinquents and crime, and it's written in a very fun, slangy time. It's a fun time. I love it. Then I read The Last Book on the Left, which is the last podcast on the left's book. It's by Marcus Parks, Ben Kissel, and Henry Zebrowski, mostly Marcus Parks. Big illustrated guide to... I got a signed copy, by the way. I ordered it off of barnesandnoble.com. By the way, it is... illustrated on the inside a lot, just talk about serial killers. It's a fun time. I listen to this podcast pretty much every day when I'm driving home from work. It's fun. All right. Then I read another novella collection that is Shadows of the Clans, which was Maple Shade's Vengeance, Goosefeather's Curse, and Ravenpaw's Farewell. Ravenpaw's Farewell made me cry, so there's that. Maple Shade's Vengeance was fun. Goosefeather's Curse was alright. Mostly Ravenpaw's Farewell made me cry, and it was a Warrior Cat book, so that was a fun time. Then I read Your Favorite Band Cannot Save You by Scott O'More, which is a weird little novella about this band that, like, causes the end of the world. It's weird, honestly. Like, I really shouldn't go into it because it's just a weird little thing. It's fun. It's a really fun time. It's like, if you like kind of bizarro fiction, I would recommend it. It's kind of horror-y, kind of fun, talks about music I like. Then I read Fat Chance by Leslie Newman, which is another eating disorder book, another young adult eating disorder book. The only difference is that this one came out in like the 90s. So it's like in diary format. It's alright. It was okay. I read it. Then I read And Then There Were Four by Nancy Worlin, which is about teenagers who end up trying to figure out that their parents are maybe trying to kill them. It was a really fun time. I did really enjoy it. Again, like I said, with no exit. I'm not a very predicty person. Like, I don't predict often, so everything was just like complete surprise to me. It was fun. It's a solid young adult thriller. I liked it. Then I picked up Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty, which is obviously Big Little Lies. It's like dramatic domestic thriller. It's not quite a thriller, but it kind of is. It's good. It is good. It deserves all the hype it's gotten, and I want to read more of her stuff because it was fantastic. And see my inner white woman. I am a white woman. I can't have an inner white woman when I'm already a white woman. Last stack, I promise. So then I actually finished listening to this one this morning. This is my audio cassette of Carrie by Stephen King. It is read by Sissy Spacek, which is fantastic. It's a fun time. I enjoyed listening to it. I listened to it on my Walkman. I knew I was right for buying some audio cassettes. Then I read Big Ugly Guy Bug by Jane Yolen and Adam Stemple. I will say that this is the most Jewish book for children I've ever read. It's very steeped in Jewish culture. It's about a boy who builds a golem to protect him from bullies, and also they have a band. I will say it does do a pretty interesting deep dive into Jewish culture, so that's good. Then I read another book to teach. This one was The Misfits by James Howe to the 7th graders. They're hating this book. They hate it so much. It's about like a presidential race in a school, and they want to read more about the Holocaust. They don't care about this. Then I read My feet are falling asleep. I've been sitting here for so long. Delicate Monsters by Stephanie Kuhn. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I don't know for sure. This is just about fucked up teenagers doing fucked up stuff. I liked it, but oh man, she does not hold back, does she? Holy shit. I've got more in the book wall, more from her, and I'm excited. Then I read None Shall Sleep by L.A. Marnie, which is a holy shit, this is just Silence of the Lambs for young adults. It really is. I enjoyed it a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. I wish that there were more, like, with these characters in this world. Like, honestly, it's super fun. I know, like, there's a suspension of disbelief about, like, the FBI wouldn't hire teenagers, but it is so much fun. I love the serial killer talk. The only thing is I wish that they did talk more about the serial killers that they went to go see and stuff like that, because they went to see it. It's about teenagers who get hired to interview teenage serial killers to help try and catch the butcher, who is a current serial killer at large hunting down teenagers. It was so much fun. This came out last year and it did not get like hardly any hype at all. I would recommend. Then I read Capulet Mag Volume 4. This is a literary journal, and by the way, yours truly has an essay in here. Christian Slater Can't Do a British Accent. It's about Robin Hood. So there's that. Fun time. I'm in it. Then I read another one of my books, and this is the one of my books that I have read that I gave 5 stars. That's Iscariot. This book was my very first book that I ever really completed a first draft of. Obviously, it's been through many, I think I get through like a total of like 9 rewrites since then. But this has everything that I have ever wanted in a book. This is the first book I ever really wrote, and I just love it a lot. I'm currently working on rewriting the second book. I'm loving writing that too, and I love this world. I love these characters. I fucked up on the formatting, so if you get it, it's double spaced, and that's why it's so goddamn thick. But I love it. It's about kids who go to hell accidentally. I love it. I know the cover is awful, but I love it. Then I read The Storm Runner by J.C. Cervantes, which is one of the Rick Riordan Presents books. This is about a Mayan mythology, I believe. It was fun. It was really good. I enjoyed it. Surprisingly gory. Then I picked up another Warrior Cat novella collection that is A Warrior Spirit, which is Pebbleshine's Kits, Trees, Roots, and Mothwing's Secret. I think Mothwing's was my favorite, but I did enjoy seeing Trees' kind of perspective on the sisters. That was cool. And Pebbleshine's Kits was better than I thought it would be, considering how I feel about SkyClimb. Alright, then I read another book on my Kindle. This one I did like, thankfully, a lot more than the other ones I've read. Fantastic Land by Mike Bakoven. This is it's kind of presented as like a found, like an interview set with after a hurricane hit Florida and a bunch of workers got trapped at this really big amusement park called Fantastic Land. I just had fun with it. It's another one of those things where, like, if you have trouble with suspension of disbelief, you will probably hate it. But I loved it. I think it would make a fantastic horror movie. I loved it a lot. Then I read Sealed with a Diss by Lacey Harrison, which is a click novel. It's just about awful preteens. That's what it is. Then I read another Broken Code book, Darkness Within, Erin Hunter. This is book 4 in the Broken Code. I'm actually getting disturbingly into the series again, and I don't like that. Then I read The Days of the French Revolution by Christopher Hibbert. Remember how we're talking about French Revolution, where they just renege Camille Desmoulins to a footnote? That's this one. That's this one right here. Then History is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. This one made me cry, so there's that. This is about a boy whose ex-boyfriend ends up dying, and he kind of connects with the boy's new boyfriend, and it's a lot. Like, it was just, even the beginning of it made me really kind of shaky. Like, it's very emotional. Mr. Silvera still definitely has it. Then I read another book to teach it. That was Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. This is for 8th graders. This is not my first time reading Speak. It's a pretty solid book. That's all I gotta say about it. Then I read Let's Go Play at the Atoms by Mendel W. Johnson. This book is kind of infamous because people have compared it to like The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum, which is based off the Sylvia Likens case. But this is about a babysitter who ends up getting kidnapped and tortured by the kids that she's babysitting. It's a lot, but it is honestly not as much as I thought it was going to be. People have talked about how they can't stand this book, they burn it, they can't stand finishing it. It's not like super graphic or anything. It's just I think people have trouble thinking of children doing these things, in which case I say to them, you haven't read Lord of the Flies enough times. You don't have Roger imprinted on your soul. But I will say it is one of the most depressing books I've ever read. Then, I swear to God, we've only got like 3 left. Oh, 4. We've got 4 left. I read another one of my books, which is The Horror at Camp New Woods, which I mentioned earlier in regards to, I have a bad feeling about this. This is technically the second Odds Boys books, but most of those books you can kind of read out of order. But this is about a summer camp where things start going really wrong. It's a novella. It's about 115 pages long. I originally wrote for a novella class, and I figured out that, oh shit, this character is in both this one and One More Sad Song. It's a fun time, little horror-y novella. This cover is done by Mobtropolis on Instagram. Honestly, if you're looking for kind of a more interesting cartoony-ish cover like this one, he's got very, very, very good rates, and he's very fast turnaround. He's a good one to check out. Then I read Skateboard Breakdown by somebody. I think Eric Fine. I don't know why I had this. I read it about this kid who skateboards and his brother gets killed in Iraq or whatever. Then the Valancourt Book of Horror Stories by James D. Jenkins and Ryan Cagle. This is just a little book of horror stories. There were some that I liked more than others, but overall it's a solid collection of horror stories. Fun time. And finally, I read Hello Universe by Erin and Trotta Kelly, which is about a kid who falls down a well and his friends who go and find him. This one in Newbury. And it is a very diverse book, I will say. A lot of diverse characters. We got a deaf character, we got a Japanese character, we got a vaguely Hispanic character, we got a gerbil or a hamster or something. I think it's a hamster. It's a guinea pig. I was wrong both counts. It's a fun book, a fun middle grade kind of book. I'm planning on giving it to my mom, who teaches 4th grade, and is also like the title coordinator. So hopefully she will get some use out of this. But yes, now we can, this is going to be the last mega long one. But now we can start doing every week. I will film, like I said today, this is my January 31st wrap up, but this is not just last week's books. Obviously, I'm not fucking insane. But yeah, that is all every day. Thank the Lord. We'll see you later, and goodbye.